My name is Bruno Aveiro from TÜV Rheinland, UK, and I will be your main host on this webinar today. The topics that we will discuss today will be about the new UKCA marking and also UKNI for Northern Ireland. And we'll discuss the origin, destination, and requirements, marks and terms, EU versus UK legislation. We'll talk briefly also about the supply of machinery regulations, EMC and radio equipment regulations, noise emission, UK Declaration on Conformity, UKCA approved bodies. There will be as well some frequent asked questions and some conclusions. So a warm welcome to everyone. This duration of the webinar will be approximately 45 minutes. There will be some question and answers at the end of the seminar. If there is audio issues, feel free to check our international numbers available. The link is shared on the screen. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat function. We will answer those questions at the end of presentation or include the answers on a FAQ document that we will share after the seminar. This presentation itself will be also available for you to download after the seminar. So starting with origin, destination, and requirements. As you may know, before January this year, the CE marking was acceptable in United Kingdom. From 1st of January this year till the 1st of January 2023, UKCA marking is applicable, but at the same time, CE marking is also accepted. You might know that recently the UK government has extended the allowance for the CE marking because initially it was set to 1st of January 2022, but now it was extended to 2023. And there are some exceptions. So the CE marking will only be acceptable where in UK and the EU rules align, which they currently do, or if the product required third-party conformity assessment, and it was carried out by a UK conformity assessment body. Then the UKCA marking will then be required to be on the product, on the machine. From 1st of January 2023, the UKCA marking is mandatory for all machinery. So CE marking is not acceptable for a machine that is placed in Great Britain. Regarding all the movement of the products from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, so since January this year, CE marking is required. Pay attention that UKCA is not valid for Northern Ireland. If the product required a third-party conformity assessment body and it was carried out by a UK notified body, then additional UKNI marking must be added alongside with the CE marking. This will mean that the product is only suitable for Northern Ireland market and not for the whole European Union. If a EU notified body was used, then UKNI marking is not required. So in this case, would be the CE marking only. If the machine moves from Northern Ireland to Great Britain, there is no changes in the requirements for the current requirements in Northern Irish business. There will be 4 years after the transition period ends. The Northern Ireland elected illusions might vote on the protocol's alignment provisions, and the CE marking is acceptable for export to Great Britain from Northern Ireland businesses. So these ones, they must be registered headquarters and must be in Northern Ireland or in Great Britain. From the rest of the world to Northern Ireland or Northern Ireland to EU, Again, there is no changes on the current requirements. There is a 4-year after the transition period ends, the Northern Ireland elected institutions might vote on different protocol provisions. Note that the products bearing CE marking and the UKNI marking cannot be placed on the market in the rest of the EU. So UKNI is exclusive for Northern Ireland. The marks and the terms. So there is a new marking, which is the UKCA, new product marking is to be used on products being placed in the market in Great Britain, so England, Wales, and Scotland. It covers most products which were previously required the CE marking. And this marking can be used as a solid color black or a logo with a white negative. Note that this marking it must be at least 5 millimeters height, unless relevant legislation states otherwise. In terms of machinery directive, it has to be at least 5 millimeters high. For machines placed in the Northern Ireland, the UKNI marking can be placed next to the CE marking, and this shows that the product is suitable for Northern Ireland exclusive. So why there is these special rules for Northern Ireland in terms of the United Kingdom? So this was the way that the UK government found to address the Belfast Agreement. So in this case, the Scotland, Wales, and England, the UKCA mark is marketplace. Only the UKNI marking is relevant, or CE marking is also acceptable at the moment. So we have some information about some terms. Notified body, it's organization designated by a EU country to assess the conformity of certain products before being placed on the market. UK notified bodies are no longer recognized by EU from January this year. Most cases, these notified bodies will become UK approved body. And UK approved body is basically an organization designated by the UK to assess the conformity of certain products before they are being placed on the UK marketplace. And then we have is DOC, or Declaration of Conformity, is the manufacturer's declaration stating that the product meets all the requirements for a product to be placed on the market. Note that a separate DOC is required for EU and the UK, because we are talking here about different regulations, different laws. There is also here overview about EU directives and UK regulations. So before 1st of January this year, the UK regulations already existed, and basically they derive from EU directives. So you can see here on the left the EU directives and the correspondent regulations in UK. On January this year, there was the European Union Withdrawal Act, which came into effect, retaining this EU-derived legislation, including product safety and metrology legislation in domestic UK law. So this act basically keeps the regulations that were stated before, like machinery supply regulations, into the domestic UK law. At the same time, there was a regulation that came out, the product safety and metrology, which amended this retained legislation to address deficiencies that will arise from UK's withdrawal from EU, such as references to EU institutions. It makes specific provisions for the GB market from 1st January this year. These regulations, they do not introduce a new policy approach on the product safety or legal metrology, and the changes made are very limited. Here you can see a screenshot of the product safety and metrology regulations. So there is different schedules making amendments for all different regulations, and to include as well amendments for the supply of machinery regulations. Mainly, as I refer, so the main differences are the references to EU institutions and of course the UKCA marking. So the CE marking is not referenced anymore. So besides the regulations, it's also necessary to consider harmonized standards, or in the UK, it's what is called designated standards. These designated standards are basically identical to the harmonized standards. So there is a list, and that list is available on UK government websites. And you will see that for machinery, the standards will be identical to harmonized standards. So you can see here, for example, that you have reference to EN ISO 12100, which is the risk assessment, and also the way that they are categorized by type. So you have type A, B, and C. It's exactly the same as the harmonized standards. In terms of the supply of machinery regulations, we have the regulation that defines the main requirements that are applicable to a specific design of a machine. And then also is necessary to consider all the different standards. So the designated standards, type A, B, and C. Here, example of type A standard is the 12100, which is the risk assessment. Type B standard is, an example is EN 6204 part 1, which addresses the electrical safety of the machine. And a type C standard is for a specific type of machines. So for example, EN 619 is applicable for conveyors. Besides these standards, if there are no designated standards to address the design of the machine, national or international standards can be also used. There could be a case that a specific feature of the machine or a specific technology, there is no EN standards available, and there is a BS, so UK standard. So in this case, a BS standard can be also used. And also can be considered other technical standards and other specifications that can be used to address the conformity of the machine, or to prove that the machine complies with the requirements from the supply of machinery regulations. So the general obligations of the machine. So before machinery is placed on the marketplace or put into service, just a little bit back is that these regulations set on the supply of machinery regulations, they are pretty much identical on the ones from Machinery Directive. So there is no main differences here. The manufacturer must ensure that all applicable essential health and safety requirements are satisfied. You must ensure that the technical file is compiled and made available. You must provide, in particular, the information necessary to operate it is safely, like instructions, maintenance information, also installation information if needed. And has to follow one of the assessment procedures. So one described by the regulation 10, which is mainly machines not described in Annex 4. There could be self-assessment by the manufacturer or with the support of test houses. There is also assessment procedures prescribed by Regulation 11, which are machines set in Annex 4, but there is, let's say, Type C standards available for those machines, and assessment procedures prescribed by Regulation 12, which in this case will need approved body to demonstrate compliance. Also necessary to draw up the Declaration of Conformity and ensure that a copy of it accompanies the machinery, and the original is also retained by the manufacturer. And of course, affix the UK marking, in this case UKCA, to the machinery. And this UKCA marking must be visible, legible, and indelible. And it must be prescribed as the mark that I referred before. So this technical file, it must have a general description of the machine. It should also contain overall drawings of machine, control circuits, wiring diagrams, PNIDs, and so on. So anything to describe the machine and the design of the machine. Full detailed drawings accompanied by calculation notes, test result certificates required to check the conformity of machinery with the essential health and safety requirements. So this will be part 1 of the supply regulations. The documentation on the risk assessment, which should include the information about the procedure followed. So typically this will be done in line with EN 12100. There should be reference to the standards or other technical specifications used, indicating the health and safety requirements covered by these standards. The technical reports giving the results of the tests carried out by the manufacturer or by a body chosen by the manufacturer or his authorized representative. A copy of the instructions for the machinery, and where appropriate, the declaration of incorporation for included partly completely machine, and copies of declaration of conformity for machine or other products incorporated in such machinery. This technical file also should include a copy of the declaration of conformity, and if happens to be a serious manufacturer, it should also include internal measures that will be implemented to ensure that the machine remains in conformity with provisions of this directive law. So mainly means that on the manufacturing sites, let's say if there is identical machines to be produced, there should be some processes in place to ensure that the machine that is being manufactured is identical, let's say, to the first one that was created, the technical file. Most important on the supply of machinery regulations, the main requirements come from the essential health and safety requirements. There are additional requirements to the EU Machinery Directive. And the additional requirement is for machinery for pesticide application, which at the moment is not covered by the EU Machinery Directive. And this, as you can see on the right, so this is the main, let's say, general principles where the main requirements for machinery directives is set. This additional requirement for pesticide application, it's under point 2, supplementary essential health and safety requirements for certain categories of machine. That will be, let's say, the main difference or the additional requirements that is not covered by EU Machinery Directive. I will pass now to my colleague, Ludwig Kraft, that will talk about EMC and radio equipment regulations here in UK.
Hello, my name is Ludwig Kraft. I'm based in Nuremberg, Germany, and I'm a wireless project manager. So I will talk briefly about EMC and the radio requirements, directive, and now regulations. So as a former EMC directive is now then in the UKCA electromagnetic compatibility regulations from 2016, and it covers all equipment for apparatus and fixed installations which are capable of generating electromagnetic emissions. Next slide, please. So the overview, on top we have the electromagnetic compatibility regulations, and as a next level we have generic standards for all devices which do not have a specific family standard. So the generic standards are available for industrial and for residential environment. For specific products, there are family standards like CEN 55011 for scientific, medical, and for industrial, scientific, medical radio frequencies disturbances, or EN 55032 for emissions for multimedia equipment. Below this level, there are then the basic standards which explain the methods and procedures for the tests. The levels and limits for these tests are then provided on the generic standards or by the product family standards. So EMC is, tests are split into emission tests and immunity tests. So the machine has first to show that it has a certain, is below a certain limit of emissions that is allowed in the environment which it is used, so in an industrial or in a residential environment. And for immunity, it has to prove that it can work within this environment without problems, without further failures. And these tests are done, conducted and radiated depending on the frequency range where we are. Next, please. Next thing is in the Radio Equipment Directive, the European Radio Equipment Directive, which is UK legislation, Radio Equipment Regulations 2017. This one covers all radios, equipment, and radio equipment is anything that distributes waves for, okay, we are already a bit ahead, which radiates waves for communication and for radio determination. So in machines, there's usually the situation that the product has added wireless module. If you add now into a machine a wireless module, it will become a new product from the radio regulations perspective. The new product has now also a radio function, and the final product will then also apply the radio regulation and needs to be tested against this radio regulation. Next one, please. So this radio regulation applies if it's permanently attached, installed in the host product. And this new one is then a combined equipment with a radio and radio module. And yeah, next slide, please. Then the essential requirements of the radio equipment regulation applies, which are then Article 3.1a, health and safety, Article 3.1b, EMC, electromagnetic tolerance, and Article 3.2 is in the radio requirements for the effective use of radio frequencies, and Article 3.3 has additional requirements which are currently not in place. Next one, please. So You cannot just add even a certified module into a machine and assume that it fulfills the requirements. So you need to verify at the combined product if it meets all requirements. It helps, of course, if you have a tested module and a certified module and you have all the test reports available. This might allow to have just integration tests for the radio. Okay, that's it from my side.
Okay, thank you, Ludwig. So we'll have now just a brief overview on the equipment for use outdoors, because sometimes some machines can be used outdoors as well. And overview is that this regulation covers 57 types of outdoor machinery, typically used on construction sites or in large parks or gardens, such as chainsaws, cranes, dumpers, excavators, lawn mowers, leaf blowers, and power generators. And this list basically is split in two. So equipment that is subject to noise limits and noise marking. And some examples are excavators, lawn mowers, lawn trimmers, leaf trucks, mobile cranes, and also equipment subject only to noise marking. And some examples are building sites, circular saw benches, chainsaws, conveyor belts, etc. Annex A on this regulation provides the full list of outdoor machine subject to noise limits and also to noise markings. One thing to consider is the extent of the obligations. So the manufacturer or his authorized representative is typically responsible for compliance. However, in the Great Britain market, if the manufacturer is not established in UK, any person placing the equipment on the market or putting into service in Great Britain is responsible for the compliance. On the Northern Ireland market, where neither the manufacturer nor his authorized representative is established in Northern Ireland or European Economic Area, any person placing the equipment on the market or putting into the service in Northern Ireland will be then responsible for the compliance. I have here as well is overview about the content of declaration of conformity for CE marking and UKCA. So basically this is for UKCA, apologies for the typo. And this is in line with the requirements of the supply machinery regulation. So first of all, the DOC must have the business name and full address of the manufacturer, and where appropriate, the manufacturer's authorized representative. Must have the name and address of the person authorized to compile the technical file, a description and identification of the machinery, including generic denomination, function, model, type, serial number, and commercial name. Must also include the sentence especially declaring that machines fulfills all the relevant provisions of the regulation, machinery regulation, and where appropriate, a similar sentence declaring the conformity with other enactments or relevant provisions on which the machinery complies. Where appropriate, the name, address, and identification number of the notified body which carry out the type examination, and the number of the type examination certificate. So this will be the case where of let's say machines listed in Annex 4. The DOC also must have reference to the designated standards used, and this will be, as I described it before, can be seen on the UK website, the government website, and at the moment they are pretty much identical to the harmonized standard. DOC also has to include the place and date of declaration and the identity and signature of the person empowered to draw up the declaration of conformity on behalf of the responsible person. So besides, here is overview about the UKCA approved bodies. So from 1st of January 2021, UK government implemented its own conformity assessed marking, which is UKCA, for products to be placed in Great Britain, England, Scotland, and Wales. UKAS accredits the conformity of assessment bodies to enable them to be appointed by the BIS in accordance to the UK legislation. So there will be different regulations that can be in the scope of the different notified bodies. We have extended our approved body scope, and currently we also are approved for the supply of machinery regulations 2008, besides radio equipment, EMC, PAD, toys, and so on. Here we have some frequently asked questions about markings and labeling. Can products be dual marked with UKCA and CE marks? Yes. So the CE marking is used to show conformity with EU requirements, which lists UKCA marking is used to show conformity with UK requirements. And this, of course, excludes Northern Ireland. Do I need a UK address on the product if I import from EU? Yes. So the importer address should also be placed on the product. Legislation specific to your product may make allowance for the imported details to be placed elsewhere if it's not practical to place them on the product. SAN Selenex standards have the prefix of BSEN. So these standards typically began with EN. These are European standards. BS designates the standard as British standard. So a BSEN is suitable for both UK and EU. So if a product is shipped to UK and EU, is it legal for a product to have the UK NI mark in EU? And yes, so this is correct. If the UK NI marking is present on the product, it cannot be supplied to EU single market. It means the CE marking is only valid for Northern Ireland. So if you wish to place products on the market for all three locations, Great Britain, Northern Ireland, and EU, you will require CE marking without UK NI and UKCA marking. So CE for EU and Northern Ireland, and UKCA for Great Britain. For CE mark in 2021, can the EU representative listed in DOC live in UK or must reside in the other 27 states? Currently, your EU rep lives in UK. As EU representative must be located in EU. UK-based representatives will no longer be recognized as a EU representative since 31st December last year. Why cannot the EU and UK Declaration of Conformity be merged into one? So the Declaration of Conformity is a legal document. One is the Declaration of Conformity under EU law, and the other one is the declaration under UK law. Their contents are clearly defined in their respective legislation. So as such, we don't recommend to combine such DOCs. Can I issue a UK DOC based on a EU DOC given the standards are the same? Is there any local testing required or devices can be tested in any member state country? So yes, so it's possible to issue a UK DOC based on a EU DOC, where the technical file is identical for both EU and UK. Also, if the involvement of a notified body was not required. If a notified body was required for the CE, then you will require certification from a UK approved body before UK DOC can be issued. So, as a conclusion, we talk about the UKCA and UK NI markings. We also discuss about terms, EU versus UK directives and legislation, origin, destination, and requirements, supply of machine regulations, ENC and radio equipment regulations, and outdoor regulation as well. I think I have some questions on the chat, so probably I think we still have some time to go through the questions. Give me just a second. So I have a question from Eric van der Wal, which is regarding the slide talking about retaining EU-derived legislation. The question is, will UK will also follow the updates and change of scope in the new MD and General Product Safety Directive? It's very difficult to respond to this answer. So ideally, yes, because as you might know, there is a new machinery directive being drafted, and the differences to the existing machinery directives is quite substantial. It will be nice for UK government to follow or to have a very similar requirements here in UK. Otherwise, will be, let's say, very difficult for the manufacturers to have, let's say, two machines, one complying with UK regulations and the other one complying with EU regulations, and they will have, let's say, a different design. But at the moment, the answer lies on the UK government. So hopefully they will align the regulations. The other question that I have here is, since for the red, the use of a noble is required when not using harmonized standard, will the harmonized list remain aligned with EU? So presently, the designated standards are aligned with EU, and I believe the intention is for those standards to be aligned. I have another question here from Martin Kiefer. How can an ATIX approved measuring device being replaced after 2023? I'm guessing that you are referring to the ATIX regulations here in UK. So after January 2023, this ATIX approved device will have to fulfill the ATIX regulation in UK. So I have here a question or a request to provide the slides. Yes, we will provide the slides after this webinar, and more information about what is required for wireless systems. So we will follow up with the answer to these questions, and we can expand, let's say, the information about the wireless systems under RED. I have a question here that asks, must all spare parts or incomplete machines have a UKCA marking when they are sent to UK? So incomplete machinery, they don't need or is not allowed to have UKCA marking on incomplete machinery. So partly complete machinery, the manufacturer will need to draw declaration of incorporation, and in line, of course, with machinery regulations, UK machinery regulations, and then will be up to the integrator to have that declaration of incorporation in technical file for the host machine, and also this partly completely machine will need to have some instructions about there could be some guards missing or some, let's say, additional features that the integrated system has to have. And this information will need to come from the manufacturer of this incomplete machinery. I have another question here is for radio modules, it is in general not possible to obtain schematic test reports. An EU notified can accept an EU tech for a component. Can a UK noble UK authorities accept a UK tech for modules, or does it explicitly have to be a UK tech? So I'm guessing tech will be the technical file. If at the moment, as far as I understand, the regulations is very similar to EU directives, and it is possible to let's say to transfer the technical file from a EU directive to UK regulation. So this can be done by notified body. Another interesting question is, how are these regulations different than the current CE regulations? So far, it looks the same, except for adding new mark. You are almost correct here. So fundamentally, the requirements, they haven't changed. And this is a good thing, or else we will, let's say, will be more complicated to achieve compliance, or will not be so much harmonized between EU and UK. So the fundamental changes is the UKCA marking on the product in terms of machinery directive, and also the declaration of conformity. And of course, if there is a pesticide machine, it will be necessary to consider let's say additional requirements that are stated in the UK machinery regulations. I have a question here. How do you go about compliance to machinery directive or EMC or RED for products that are labeled and sold and manufactured is different? I'm not too sure if I understood, so probably if you can rephrase the question, that will be helpful. Another question that I have here is that is link to DOC on internet allowed for UK? So I'm guessing that you are referring to soft copy of the DLC, and it is allowed because at the end of the day you need to have the instructions, and the user of the machine should receive a copy of the declaration of conformity, and this can be a soft copy. Manufacturer nevertheless should retain the original DOC. I have a question here about PED, so Pressure Equipment Directive. It's not my area. We will discuss internally with my colleagues, and we will reply to this question. So I have a question here about products that are sold to the customers before January 1st, 2023. If they can be imported to UK later. So yes, also here the regulations and the UKCA is mandatory from 1st January 2023. So when any product that arrives in UK and is placed on the GB marketplace from 1st January 2023, it has to comply with UKCA. I will advise that if there is opportunity to have the technical file and the products compliant with UKCA marking before January 2023, that probably will be the best option. But from 1st January 2023, the machinery placed on the GB, so in Great Britain, they have to fulfill UKCA marking requirements. About the slides, yes, we will share the slides, and again, we'll share the slides. We'll also share my contact details. So any further questions or any need for clarification, feel free to contact me. I'll be very glad to help. I have a question here is when UK NI is necessary, it should be affixed together UK NI and CE. Could you confirm? So UK NI is the marking for Northern Ireland. I say that a machine is placed in Northern Ireland where there is no need for involvement of approved body. So the manufacturer can self-assess and it can affix the CE marking on the machine. If by any chance that machine, let's say, is Annex 4 machine and has been tested by approved body, then UK NI must be affixed into that machine. I have here clarification from Eric regarding text. So Typism examination certificates. I will again, I will review your question and we will come back with a written response. And the last question that I have here, I heard that there was something with additional stickering for UKCA was only allowed until January 2022. So probably you are, this is referring to the previous allowance from UK government, because initially it was said that from January 2022, all the products in Great Britain, they must be UKCA marked, but the UK government has, let's say, extended the period with another year, which means that products placed in UK, and they still can bear the CE marking during 2022. Only from 1st January 2023, all the products placed in the GB marketplace, they have to be UKCA certified. They need to have UKCA marking. So I will like to thank everyone for the attendance. Hope that the information provided in this webinar has been useful. Again, we will go through your questions in the chat and we will reply to them in a written form. So we'll share the responses together with the presentation that we went just through. Again, feel free to contact me if you have any questions, whether in machinery, whether if it is low voltage, PD, and we will get you answers from all the different experts that we have. And so thank you very much.